Well, thank you so much. And it's good to see you on a wonderful Saturday afternoon. This is good baseball weather. And we have a baseball game in Oklahoma City tonight. In fact, Lou Brock's going to be joining us tonight at the ballpark. So if you can make it over there this evening, you can get some autographs from Lou Brock this evening. But it is good to see you. As I've traveled the state over the last month or so, and I've looked at the crowds that I've been attending and been a part of, it's very encouraging to me. I was in Garfield County last Thursday night, 700 to 800 people on the courthouse lawn in Garfield County at 6 o'clock in the evening. The question was asked, this is the Tea Party movement that was happening at that time, but the question was asked, how many of you are here for the first time? Over 3/4 of the people in attendance raised their hand. That's encouraging in the month of April. I believe there's a movement occurring across this country and across the state, and it's a movement that says we want to take ownership back over the process of government. That we've elected people that have forgotten what it means to serve. We've elected people who have forgotten that they are not our master, they are our servant. That we send them to represent us and they derive our powers from us. And so when you think about history, and I love history, many of you have traveled to historical landmarks as I have. I've stood outside the Old North Bridge there in Massachusetts. I've traveled to monuments, obviously, in Washington, D.C. with my family. I love thinking about the founding of our country. I love thinking about the risks that it took for men and women to join together and say, for the sake of liberty, for the sake of freedom, we're going to join together and sacrifice all that we know. It was an experiment. And it began, and here we are 234 years later, and I submit to you that we live in the greatest time since the beginning. And we live in the greatest time since the founding because I believe there's more at risk today than there has been since the beginning. Your freedom, my freedom. I'm running for Attorney General, and Joe mentioned this, for one primary and fundamental reason. To advance and protect your freedom. Because it is under assault from Washington, D.C. You know that. And I will stand as an advocate on your behalf as your Attorney General. We need a new Attorney General in the state of Oklahoma, a new kind of Attorney General. When you think of the Attorney General's office in Oklahoma, you think about prosecutorial role, and that's part of the office. You think about the appellate process with the death penalty. That's part of the office. I will carry out those functions with great commitment. But let me say this to you. We live in a different time. We live in a different time because the AGs from across the country are going to have to take the Constitution in one hand and go through the courts in the other and say, we're going to give meaning and life to your liberties. And I promise you that I will do that on your behalf as your next Attorney General. We are told that we have property rights, but yet we have government that comes in and takes our lands via eminent domain for non-governmental purposes. We're told that we have the right to keep and bear arms, subject to regulations of someone unelected and unaccountable to us. We're told that we have the right of freedom of religion, but only to practice it within the four walls of the church and not in the public square. All that is wrong. And as your Attorney General, I can tell you, I'm going to fight for your constitutional liberties, your constitutional freedoms against Washington, D.C. and the state of Oklahoma as far as advancing your interests there. Because we in the state, and you've heard from many wonderful folks today, former colleagues of mine, and they will tell you that many times on the floor of the Senate, the floor of the House, there will be legislation that will be brought up. And someone will say, isn't this unconstitutional? And they can give testimony to this. Invariably, the person would say, that's not my role to determine that. That's wrong. We take an oath to the Constitution. I intend on making sure that the legislative processes work for you as your Attorney General. I want to say to you that even in the state of Oklahoma, we pass laws that violate our Constitution. One of those is something I fought against on the floor of the Senate that I will seek to try to advise our legislature, issue opinions to effect. And this, when you go get your driver's license, do you like having to take your thumbprint and put it on the license?
No, I don't.
I don't either. And it violates the Constitution, it violates your rights, and as your Attorney General, I'm going to do something about it. Let me give you 2 or 3 things about the office that I want to seek to focus upon real quickly, because Tom's got this clock running, and unlike baseball, where there's no time limit, there's a time limit here, unfortunately. Number one, I'm going to establish an office of federalism internal to the AG's office. It will be an office or a division where I will retain attorneys that will wake up each day, go to bed each night with one thought in mind. How do we make your constitutional liberties and freedoms real against Washington's encroachment? That's never been done. It's going to be an example for the entire country on using the AG's office and being intentional about giving meaning to your constitutional rights. That's number one. Number two, I'm a businessman. That's what Joe shared with you. I know what it means to run a business, to sign a paycheck, to pay folks, I know what that means. Do you know that the AG has 150 employees in the state of Oklahoma? Do you know the budget was approximately $30 million? An AG prioritizing, making sure that that office works for you is very, very important. I will do that on your behalf. And then lastly, having worked in the legislature for 8 years, I know what it means for the AG to go across the Capitol grounds to the legislature and advocate for policy changes. I will advocate change in workers' compensation reform. I will advocate change on policies on lawsuit reform. I will advocate for change in each of the areas that we've talked about from a constitutional perspective. I ask for your vote. I ask for your support. The election is July 27th. Let's work together to make your freedoms real in Oklahoma and set an example. Thank you.